Hello everyone and welcome back to IMO Reviews. Today we're discussing your hot takes and the subject matter being the most overrated movies and TV shows. And allow me to take this opportunity to say thank you to all of you who did contribute and chime in with your opinions. There were so many of them towards the end. I very nearly considered breaking this into 2 videos. So I really do appreciate all of you chiming in with some wild opinions, let's put it that way. And I also appreciate your continued support of the channel. It really does mean a lot if you hit that like button and that subscribe button. Just a little clue for you. And of course, we thank you if you do. Oh, and side note, all of these comments will be anonymous. I don't want to put people's profile pictures and names up and basically put a target on their back for just having a crazy opinion. Whereas I do that to myself just for the fun of it. So kicking things off, the most overrated TV show is Stranger Things. I kind of agree with you here. I certainly don't think Stranger Things is the best thing ever. I personally feel each season has slowly deteriorated from the very get-go. That first season is still the best season, in my opinion. And personally, I kind of feel like I'm still watching it just out of longevity. I've come this far. I might as well get over the finish line. So I do kind of agree with you on that one. I also don't necessarily understand the hype. It's way too predictable. Second up is La La Land and The Walking Dead. Now, The Walking Dead, yeah, I completely agree with you. I watched that show up till maybe season 5. Negan had arrived. I remember Negan quite well and all of the hype that came with Negan and how none of that hype was actually ever delivered. And I was the last person in my friends group to still be watching it. All of us watched it to begin with, and bit by bit, fewer and fewer of us were watching it until it was me. And I think I just got to a certain episode where I was like, I'm done now. I'm just not interested in any of this. And it's never grabbed my attention to get back into it, even having heard, well, they've got new writers now and they're actually writing towards an ending. I'm just sitting there like, I just can't be bothered with it anymore. And La La Land is an interesting one because I don't like musicals, but I did quite like La La Land. But because I don't like musicals, maybe I'm not the opinion to trust. I bet there's musical aficionados out there who are looking at La La Land and going, ha ha ha, cheap imitator. Whereas I'm sitting there going, colours, lovely. So La La Land, I'm a bit 50-50 on you there. I don't think the music's as good as people make it out to be. It's just that City of Stars song. That's the only one that I genuinely can remember and sing off the top of my head. It's the only catchy one, you know? Number 3 is The Shawshank Redemption. Extremely predictable and just not for me. Don't get the hype. What? I mean, each to their own, but personally, I love The Shawshank Redemption. The only thing I don't like about The Shawshank Redemption is that I've seen it way too many times and it's sort of lost its impact on me over the years. I don't revisit it anywhere near as much as I'd like to, because I fear that I'd end up just playing on my phone through it after a while. But not because it's bad, but just because I know it like the back of my hand. I really like this one here. I wish James Bond movies had stayed silly and left the gritty stuff to Jason Bourne. The Mission Impossible movies have been more James Bond than James Bond these past 10 years. I also love Roger Moore. He's my favourite Bond. Roger Moore was an excellent James Bond and does not get the love that he deserves. And I'm guilty of it too, because like millions of other people around the world, I just go, Sean Connery's the guy and that's how that is. But in truth, we're actually quite blessed with our James Bond actors. All of them have been pretty good at some point or other. And Roger Moore is no exception to that rule. I absolutely salute you, sir. And when I first read this, I did disagree. But when I thought about it, I kind of changed my mind. You're right. Mission Impossible and Jason Bourne, when you chuck James Bond in there as well, they all just become unrecognisable from each other. You could pretty much chop and change scenes between them and it's like the films wouldn't change. And I do wonder if James Bond decided to just be that cheesy sort of movie that doesn't really exist anymore, if it actually would have been more successful. It's a really interesting question. It certainly would have made it stand out. It certainly would have made it original. It certainly would have added to the history of the franchise. I don't know. I can't say for definite, but I think it's a really fascinating idea. Point number 5, and this one hurt my soul. WALL-E is painfully dull. I will give you this. I haven't seen WALL-E for years, so I don't know how well it's aged. I don't know if I still like it as much as I used to, but I really do like that movie. I never thought I was going to buy into the romance between Eve, I think her name was, and Wally, but my God, I really did. And I do kind of like the locations and the setups to the movie. There is a lot about Wally that I like, at least in my memory. Point number 6. Mad Max Fury Road is an average action movie. It has nice action and it is visually pleasing, but has almost zero plot, and the world setting is completely nonsensical. Transformers is often criticised for the same problems, but Fury Road is loved for it. Wow. I thought you made a really good point until Transformers came into it, because I hate those movies. But I must admit, I didn't think much of Fury Road upon my first watch at all. But I always summed it up as being that at that point I had never seen a Mad Max movie. I hadn't seen the first one, I hadn't seen Thunderdome, I hadn't seen a single one. So I was going in completely blind. I even half expected Mel Gibson to show up. That's how little I knew about this as I went in. And then I just sort of walked out a bit confused and not really sure what I'd watched, except for a lot of cars in the sand. Now I've seen the whole franchise, now I kind of know what the franchise is actually about. Yes, it's mental and it doesn't make a lot of sense whatsoever. But is it fun? Yeah, I think it is fun. It's not a top 10 for me. The Wolf of Wall Street is 3 hours of shock content, and I hated Rosemary's Baby. I mean, I can understand the hatred towards Rosemary's Baby. That is a very controversial movie. It's certainly not a Blu-ray that I chucked immediately into the shopping basket after watching. But Wolf of Wall Street, I really like that movie. I think you make a really good point with Wolf of Wall Street. A lot of the selling point to the movie is the shock factor and just how bizarre and crazy this guy's lifestyle is. And I do think the running time could be a lot better. Now, having seen the film a few times, I think there's quite a bit that could be cut. A lot of it being with Jonah Hill, as much as his character's fun, but story-wise, he's pretty damn ineffectual. And like you say, after a while, you kind of get the point. So I don't think that's all crazy what you said there. I'm kind of on board with it. Community was the biggest waste of my time. I felt I had to finish it and it made me smirk once or twice, but it was never funny and it made me hate Joel McHale. Hot. That is hot. I have really fond memories of Community because a really dear friend of mine introduced it to me out of nowhere. I'd never heard of this thing, but I think he maybe lent me the DVD and he just had a big grin on his face saying, you'll love this, check it out. And he was right, I did. I had a great time with it. It's a very easy comfort watch. But what I will agree with you on is I don't know when exactly it happened, but the quality of that show, it fell off a cliff harshly. As someone who loves the show, even I stopped giving a crap after a while. It was around the time that Donald Glover left and they started bringing in new cast members. That's when it was like, no, just no. Next one. The Office. I find neither version particularly entertaining. I might have a bit of British bias here, but I enjoy the UK Office for what it is, whereas the American Office, I think it's a cheap imitator. I'm sorry, but I do. It's exactly what we did, but just not done as good. And like I said, I only like the English Office. I don't love it by any means. I don't think the humour of the show has aged very well whatsoever. There is a lot of stereotypes and people bashing in the humour of the show, and yeah, I just don't think it would fly today. But they definitely nail the feeling and the dynamics of working in an office. I think that's what I actually liked about it more so than anything. I feel like I'm going to get too much hate for this, but Letterkenny is overrated. I had to do a bit of research for this one because I haven't seen Letterkenny. It's not a popular show in the UK, at least to my knowledge. But it does seem to get very high scores and ratings, and it does seem to have quite a big fan base behind it. I checked out a few YouTube clips of it, and this was probably the wrong way to assess the show on my part, because I did kind of feel like I was dropped into the middle of it with no context whatsoever, but it wasn't doing anything for me. It didn't grab me. It didn't make me curious to check out more of it. So I tend to agree with you from what I do know about the show. The next one is Up. A good opening does not make a good movie. This was a funny one because when I first read it, I felt offended to my very core. But the more I thought about it, I realised actually he might be right. A lot of what you remember and think about when you talk about Up is that first 10 minutes, which is perfectly done. Then the rest of the movie is just kind of a bit batshit insane about dogs running around on a blimp and stuff. It really does jump the shark at some point. Again, it's another one I haven't seen for a long time, but you might be right. Someone just put Star Wars, and yeah, I felt that one. The next one is Friends. It's just not funny. I get that it was for the time and somehow relevant to that generation, but honestly, it just sucks. I mean, I can't hate Friends because the very first woman I fell in love with was Jennifer Aniston, and it was from me watching her on Friends with a very loosely fitted shirt, shall we say. But I do think the show went on 5, 6 seasons, way too longer than it needed to. It definitely didn't need any spin-offs like that Joey show. Like, God, can you even remember that thing even existed? And the final thing that just kills me about Friends now is just how easily accessible it is. I could put the telly on right now in the UK, and I promise you there'll be an episode of Friends playing on one channel or another, most likely Comedy Central or Comedy Central Extra. But Jesus Christ, yes, they seem to play about 40 episodes a day, and it's just mental. Nobody needs that much Friends in their life. The next one says, The Mandalorian and The Orville. Both are incredibly average versions of things done much better before its time, but people go nuts for them because it's new and shiny. I haven't seen The Orville. I'm not a big fan of Seth MacFarlane, and when I saw he was in it, I just sort of went, I'm good. But The Mandalorian, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to disagree with you. I kind of love it. I think it's pretty fair to say that The Mandalorian is a desperate breath of life being pushed back into that Star Wars franchise, and sadly, some of their other work, like Book of Boba Fett, is very quickly squeezing that life back out of it again. But I'm afraid I can't agree with you on that one. I think The Mandalorian is perfection. The next one says, Terminator 2, Aliens, and Leon. Tired of the reluctant parent storyline. It's been done to death. Now, don't you worry, Leon. Everything's going to be okay. The nasty man didn't mean it. I think you make an excellent point, actually. That reluctant parent storyline, yeah, it is tiresome, and it only ever plays out one of two ways. But I think you're being a bit harsh, especially on Terminator 2. There's a lot more going on in Terminator 2 than just the reluctant parent storyline. The next one is Game of Thrones. Ugh, this show. Never have I ever been so invested in a show to be crushed quite so severely as I did with Game of Thrones. I read all of the books, I read all of the additional material, I would watch the YouTube videos that would come up with theories and character arcs. I would stay up till about 2 o'clock in the morning talking to my housemate about what we think is going to happen to each character and how this story is going to unfold. They didn't just shit the bed with Game of Thrones. I mean, it's dripping off the sides and onto the floorboards. And every time I hear that they're doing some other prequel with the House of Dragons and Jon Snow's got a spin-off show, I don't fucking care, because you made me not care by not actually caring yourselves. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Next up, The Nightmare Before Christmas. I love The Nightmare Before Christmas. But again, similar to my argument with La La Land, because I'm not a musical aficionado, and it's actually just my simple brain getting excited because it's Halloween and Christmas, my two favourite holidays being meshed into one. And finally, Aliens. They went from an interesting horror with working class people to a basic action movie with stereotypical military people. Game over, man! Game over! What the fuck are we gonna do now? I think you make quite an interesting point. I wasn't around at the time, but having watched Alien in the cinema and then seeing the trailers and the hype for Aliens, I do kind of question how well a transition that went down. Did people go into Aliens expecting, well, what the first one does, but, you know, differently? Or did they know full well that they're going to be getting their hands on a James Cameron action movie, essentially? Preparation can be key with things like this. But do I like Aliens? Oh yeah, I like Aliens. I think it's an insanely good movie. I like the pace of it, I like the sound design of it, I like the quotes of it. Yeah, I can quote that thing to death. And it's got one of the most iconic showdowns ever. Just flat out ever.
Get away from her, you bitch!
What up, blood? What up, cuz? What up, blood? What up, gangsta?
So yeah, unfortunately, I've got to disagree with you there. I think Aliens is insanely good. And that is that on reading your hot takes. Thank you so much for sending them in to me. They have been great fun to read through. Thank you for watching this video. Please do hit that like button and the subscribe button, and please do hit the comment section. I'd love to know what you think of some of these hot takes. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you on the next review.